Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another Walking Dead video. So I wanted to talk about The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon, which may be premiering tomorrow. We'll talk about that in a second, but I actually really want to get into something here that I do believe everyone should be really excited about, and there is some story details regarding Daryl Dixon that has come out in the reviews, and it's not really spoilery. I mean, there's some stuff in here. There's stuff that we basically kind of assumed they were going to talk about, but show us, but it's practically been confirmed at this point, and that is that the running aggressive variant walker or whatever that we saw at the post-credit scene at the end of World Beyond is actually going to be here in the Daryl Dixon show. It's not just the burners that we saw in the opening minutes. There's actually the other variant as well. So I want to talk about that, talk about everything that we learned here. So before we go any further, make sure to be a subscriber if you want to get all my Walking Dead Daryl Dixon content. I will be posting my review likely tomorrow if I'm able to watch it tomorrow. And that's what I was saying before. Around Comic-Con, I believe, they confirmed that episode 1 was going to be coming out on September 7th on AMC+, but it seems like lately that could have changed. It may be coming out on September 10th. So we might actually have to wait until September 10th to watch the premiere, but we'll have to wait and see. I'm not entirely sure of their release schedule for this. Like, I don't know if they're letting us watch it early, you know, with AMC Plus. I'm not entirely sure, but obviously if the episode is out tomorrow, I will do a review and I'll talk about everything, break everything down and whatnot tomorrow. So definitely make sure to be a subscriber if you want to get all my Walking Dead content like that. But let's get into this here. So what I really wanted to do was reference a few articles here, and there is some news that I do want to talk about in terms of the actual show, in terms of the episode titles, and some news regarding the release of Daryl Dixon. But first, I wanted to get into what you guys are likely here for, and that is regarding the running zombies here. So there was a few articles, obviously, that posted reviews. I mean, there was way more than a few. There was a lot of articles that posted reviews for The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon, and some of the reviews talked about some of the story details, like the fact that Daryl needs to bring him to a place called the Nest, and they believe that he is sort of the Messiah or whatever, and that he will bring on the revival of humanity, and that I guess the ability of him maybe technically curing all of this and fixing all of it is sort of, you know, that's generally the idea, is basically he is the Messiah. He can fix all of this. He could fix the entire world, and so he is very, very important. Apparently, he's a very, very intelligent character. And yeah, obviously, there's a lot there to get into. Once we watch the episode, obviously, we'll talk about that. But there were some other story details that they talked about. And more specifically, they focused on some of the variant walkers. And so this article right here, which is by Digital Spy, I'll leave a link down below to all their articles, because this is actually their reviews of the series. And I definitely recommend checking it out because they go into a ton of detail. But in this one here, it says 12 years in, just as Daryl's finally got used to this hell, the spinoff throws a new threat his way in the form of those pesky variant zombies we first saw at the end of World Beyond. The ones who can run and climb and appear to be far smarter than your average walker. It turns out those zombies are far more horrifying than even that description would have you believe. To say more would spoil the surprise, but just know that these kind of game-changing innovations are exactly what this franchise needs all these years in, if The Walking Dead has any hope of surviving another decade. And that right there is, first of all, is something that I've been saying for a long time, because, you know, there's been an argument from a lot of fans that, you know, going into the variant stuff is definitely something that they don't want. They like the very simpleness of it, how there's just normal zombies and it doesn't have to get all crazy like Resident Evil. I think you can get there eventually. I think the whole thing with Resident Evil, to be honest, like, I mean, first of all, I love that franchise so much, but I feel like they get into stuff too fast. Like, I love the first game. And then, I mean, that's the thing with Resident Evil, it's a little different though. Like, sort of from the beginning, you're dealing with zombies and creatures like that. You know, I think more so the movies and then the games later on just, you know, focused a lot more on action and sort of got away from, I think, its original, you know, purpose. And I don't think people mind change as long as you do it eventually. And I think The Walking Dead focused on the very simple, normal walker that we all know for many, many years, for over a decade. That was like just the dominant walker. That's all we got, right? So I think it's fine if there's all of a sudden this new variant that is coming around, because there's still normal zombies around there, right? Like, there's actually still normal zombies. It's just that you have these other variants that are starting to pop up here and there. And there seems to be, with these runners anyways, there seems to be a reason why. And that's the thing that I like about it. There seems to actually be a reason why here. And this is something that I think the show should actually get into here. So this is some other proof here as well. This article here is from Forbes, and they talk about this a little bit here. So they say the coolest bit of the show focuses on experimentation with super zombies, which we got hints about at the end of The Walking Dead World Beyond, and continues the show trying to do new things with zombies, like how at the end of the main show, they started doing things like climbing, opening doors, and welding knives. Here, they are not smart zombies, but they are strong and a bigger threat than we've seen. We needed more strong zombies here and less Laurent. Yeah, the reviewer here did not like Laurent at all as a character, so that's sort of why that was mentioned there at the end. But yeah, the review here talks about experimentation with super zombies. So obviously you see that word experimentation, you got to wonder, are we going to be seeing science experiments? Are we going to see scientists working on stuff? Because we sort of saw that in World Beyond. I do think so, and the reason why is because of the quote that we're going to get right away. But yeah, very interesting word here. And these super zombies, again, the runners that we saw, this is what The Walking Dead needs. And it's so exciting because now when you look at the Daryl Dixon trailer, that one shot of Daryl running and then sort of jumping off and there's like this big explosion, that makes sense now, right? There's actually running zombies there. Like that walker there, like that walker is a running walker or whatever. Like, are we just going to call them runners now? Like, is that what we're calling them, runners? Because running walkers just sounds so ridiculous, but we have that walker and then we have this crazy looking walker that is like chained down, and these walkers seem to be way more aggressive and they're very, very strong. And again, the previous quote said that, like, you know, how they're describing it in terms of them running and being stronger and more aggressive doesn't do justice, basically. I'm paraphrasing, but doesn't do justice to like what we actually see on screen. So that right there is so, so exciting. That I really, really cannot wait for, because I think Daryl experiencing these new type of walkers is just going to create so much excitement within the fan base. I can already see people being so excited seeing that, because like in Dead City, that, you know, the Walker King there was really cool. That walker was amazing. It was really cool to see that, but that walker was more of a mutation of just, you know, the dead being down there in sewers, I guess, of New York City, basically, and just stuff like that eventually would just randomly happen, right? So it was a bit more of a mutation. It's not actually, you know, there's no sinister thing there in terms of they're experimenting on walkers to create weapons, basically, or at least that's what I'm assuming. And then we have another article here, and this one here is by sci-fivision.com, and this review here really goes in depth on the show. I definitely recommend this review. If you do want to check out like a genuine, like really in-depth review on this show, definitely check this out. Honestly, it's really amazing. But I noticed this one part here that got me so excited, and it says, fans of the flagship show might be hoping for an explanation of the post-credit scene set in a French laboratory from The Walking Dead World Beyond. Jeanette, I'm not entirely sure how you say her name, leader of the antagonistic political group Pouvoir des Vivantes, I'm likely going to have to learn how to say that, does have scientists experimenting on walkers. The greater purpose of those experiments, however, remains obscure. Vague lines about the relationship between the dead and the living are thrown out here and there. A wild-haired scientist holds a clipboard. Very importantly, we watch tests succeed and fail, but we remain in the dark as to what Pouvoir, I guess that's the villains, intend to do with all of this science, or why their methods take the form they do. So again, this is going to be something that I guess they're really setting up here in season 1. And this is why I think the CRM are involved overall, is because of that World Beyond post-credit scene. There's a connection here. There definitely is a connection. Like, they're making zombie weapons, basically, right? They're testing on all of this stuff here, and that's what I'm assuming. Obviously the quote or that review doesn't say that. I'm just really assuming that that's probably what they're doing there. They could be finding a cure. We saw in World Beyond that you know, they were trying to do that as well, but I do believe that they could also be trying to find, or not trying to find, but that they could be creating weapons there. And it's exciting. It's really exciting to see a lot of that stuff, because that is how Daryl and eventually Carol in season 2 get connected to Rick and Michonne and all of that in The Ones Who Live, right? Like, that's how you make the connection there. So it's extremely exciting. I really can't wait to watch the show and learn a lot more about this and actually see a lot more of these details, because there's a lot of stuff I'm sure that, you know, there's little Easter eggs here and there. There's probably a lot there that they can't really talk about, right? You know, where does this show end? The villains and all of that. Like, there's so many questions that I have that I'm just really, really wondering about. I'm really wondering just how, like, why are they experimenting on zombies, right? This is something that I've talked about for a very, very long time. Like, it's CRM related. It has to be. It really, really has to be Civic Republic related. And I think that's why Daryl probably ended up in France, or maybe that's not really necessarily connected overall, but I do think the scientists that were at that, I don't know what they called it, if it was a conference or whatever, but something happened in Ohio early on or whatever. And like that's what was mentioned in the World Beyond post-credit scene. I think it was the Primrose team or something. And they were trying to find a cure or whatever. And that was in Ohio, which obviously the Commonwealth is located in Ohio. And the reason why a lot of this stuff does seem to be really connected is because the Civic Republic formed in the very early, moments of the apocalypse, like very, very early on. It's possible they even formed prior to the apocalypse starting, but that's a lot of crazy stuff. Like that is something that they could get into in the Rick and Michonne show, but we'll have to wait and see, right? Like that's the thing too. Like all of this here, if like that's the biggest thing. Like, was this created, right? Was the zombie virus here created by the Civic Republic or whatever? That's stuff that, obviously people will theorize about, and that's something that people have theorized a lot about in The Walking Dead. But I would say just for now, in terms of if it just started on its own, regardless, the Civic Republic took action immediately and they formed their own government, and it was part of the old government. And obviously they probably had scientists and people were involved at whatever conference or whatever this was, but there's connections to France as well here. And I believe it's all connected. I think all of the major organizations here are connected overall. And I think that is sort of what we're learning. And I think that's what they're introducing here. I think Daryl Dixon is getting into this here over there. And then I think Rick and Michonne will touch on this, obviously through the military side and whatnot. And it's going to get really, really interesting over the next year. And then there's Dead City. How does Dead City get involved in all of this? I feel like that's the one show that is going to kind of stay away from this stuff for a little bit. But they are the closest technically to the Civic Republic. I mean, besides Rick and Michonne, but they are in New York. The Civic Republic is located like near New York, but kind of in Philadelphia. So they're very, very close, right? Anyways, I'm gonna leave it here. Definitely make sure to post your thoughts down below. Hope you guys all enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.